The Unshackled Englishman. Phillip A Luty was a British pro-gun activist that grew up on a West Yorkshire farm, born in 1965. He is most famous for his book Expedient Homemade Firearms, the 9mm submachine gun, among other books. The background to what led up to this book being published started in 1996, where a mass shooting occurred at the Dunblane Primary School in Scotland, leaving 17 dead. The British government took full advantage of the situation, despite reports that the government failed to act after reports of assault, obstructing the police, and other offences that may have prevented the massacre. The government's response would be to ban almost all private ownership of handguns. The punishment of the shooting was directed solely towards thousands of gun owners who had their private property stolen from them. Phillip was unhappy at the collective punishment that innocent British gun owners faced. He set on a mission to prove that the government efforts were futile. His point was the ability to make a firearm and ammunition could be done at any local hardware store, regardless of what laws are in place. Phillip was active online with his activism by publishing his beliefs, drawings and designs on his website called thehomegunsmith.com. He wrote articles for L. Neil Smith's The Libertarian Enterprise. He would also release designs for a 12GA pistol, homemade ammunition, 22 LR suppressors, all still available on his website. During this time, he would work on building a fully DIY 9mm submachine gun on his property. His requirements were it must combine both simplicity of design and material availability as a means of achieving simplicity of manufacture. When he started his build, it took around 6 months to completion to figure out the best and most available materials or tools to use. He would test fire his design and it worked reliably. One model even included a sound suppressor. He would then spend a period of time writing an easy to understand guide of how he built it. The book covers the assembly, manufacture and troubleshooting of his 9mm submachine gun. It includes drawings, photos and schematics. Many parts included square tubing, sheet metal, collars and screws. All can be found at local hardware stores. The finished product was a light and compact weapon with simple ergonomics. The barrel was not rifled in its original design, which hampered accuracy. It was a well put together book that was clear and effective in its objective. Due to its simplistic design, it was extremely reliable if built correctly. A well-known publisher out of Colorado called Paladin Press released this 96-page book to the world on May 1st, 1998. It became widely famous in the home gunsmith community, selling copies all over the world. This act of defiance against the ban would change his life forever. On the 24th of April 1998, Mr. Luty was convicted of the manufacture of a prohibited weapon, where he was sentenced to 4 to 5 years in prison. He had to endure the loss of freedom for his political activism and all the hardships of living in captivity. On the 25th of April 2005, the members of the Luty family were arrested at gunpoint by the British police, including a 75-year-old cancer patient, Edward Luty. Their homes ransacked, damaged and property stolen. Nothing illegal was found on the premises of the Luty family after the searches. The family was charged collectively for conspiracy to manufacture firearms. Edward Luty would later pass away that same year. On the 20th of May 2009, Mr. Luty was again arrested at gunpoint by the North East Counter-Terrorism Unit and charged under the UK Terrorism Act of 2000. Under the law, he made a record of information that could assist terrorists and faced a long prison sentence. The British government was determined to remove Mr. Luty from society and make an example out of him. British police harassed many other UK citizens for the crime of only downloading the book online, something commonly protected in the US under the First Amendment. One man who was a day away from open heart surgery had his home raided and arrested for downloading a copy of Luty's book while owning a BB gun, race starter pistol and a legal antique rifle. Police actions and timing could have easily killed an innocent man. Prison life. Phillip had no prior criminal record. The judge acknowledged that Phillip had no evil or criminal intent, that he made the gun as an act of protest. However, to set an example to all would-be protesters, the judge sentenced Phillip to 4 to 5 years in prison. Originally he was sent to a low security prison with the opportunity to work and have visits home. However, the government transferred him to a high security prison with actual hardened criminals. He had refused to bend on his principles regarding the right of people to own firearms and was vilified by many prison staff for this. An example can be found in the quote by probation officers stating the following. Mr. Luty admitted a long-term interest in guns and gun making. At the time of interview, he expressed strong views about the stringent gun laws in this country and on issues related to the individual and the state. Since his imprisonment, Mr. Luty's mother has died and I understand his father remains chronically ill. The prisoner's attitude to the role of the state and the possession and use of firearms gives rise to serious concern. This, taken together with the anti-authority stance exhibited during this sentence, adds to the concern that he could represent a very great danger to members of the public in future. The fact that his mother had died since imprisonment, and he appears to have developed an embittered view of his treatment in prison, may reference his antisocial and anti-authority attitudes, making the likelihood of grave crimes being committed in the future even more likely. In all circumstances, in my opinion, the presumption must be that he is potentially dangerous, and the case must be managed accordingly. The prisoner has not shown any progress in understanding the concerns highlighted in this case, and if anything appears even more intransigent in his views than before conviction. Therefore, in my view, he is not a suitable candidate for early release on parole. His future supervision on licence will have to be undertaken with a view to managing risk to the public as an overriding priority. The prison governor also made comments on the matter. The nature of your book and the views expressed in it are precisely what makes you a risk to the public. They, the views, lie at the core of why you were sent to prison in the first place. Those views are still firmly held and they make you a danger to the public. Despite the comments by this probation officer and the prison governors, 3 separate psychiatrists found that he had no mental illness, and the prison chaplain stated that 1. He never shown himself to be a threat to the public, 2. He has been a well-behaved inmate and has complied with all that has been asked of him whilst in prison. It is clear that the British government did not like someone who believed in these principles commonly found in the US. He was obviously denied parole during that time despite losing his mother and not being able to properly grieve his loss. Allegations. Around 2006 to 2009 there was a string of vandalism against private housing development and charity organisations near the Leeds area. The local police alleged that they believed that Phillip was responsible for these crimes, however there was a lack of evidence to charge and he was let go. There is no publicly available evidence online that would suggest he had an issue with either organisations. Phillip is presumed innocent until proven guilty. It is possible that due to the extreme nature of the charges against him and was in the area at the time, the local police could have assumed that he was the one responsible if there was no other suspect available. Unfortunately, at 46 years old, suffering a long battle with cancer, Phillip A Luty passed away on April the 8th, 2011. This was right before his trial on terrorism charges of writing his books and sharing his work. At the time of his death, he was still in prison.
What have we become?